This is Matt Hurt at Obsessive Viewer on Twitter with a special bonus episode of ObsessiveViewer.com's The Obsessive Viewer Podcast. Welcome to The Obsessive Viewer. We're a weekly movie and TV podcast that covers a specific topic, be it genre, trope, movie, or show, each episode. You can find back episodes at ovpodcast.com, find the blog at obsessiveviewer.com, and subscribe to the subreddit at r/obsessiveviewer. You can also support the podcast at patreon.com/obsessiveviewer. And also you can leave us a rating and review on iTunes. It helps out a ton. And as I said before, this is a bonus episode in which I will be discussing and reviewing Season 1 of Amazon's original series, Mad Dogs, from Shawn Ryan and a couple other people I'm not sure about. But to join Chris Cole, there you go. And to join me on this is Dylan Schuck from bgrizzly.com and from The Dead Inside, The Guilty Remnant, and Better Talk Saul podcasts. Dylan, how's it going?
It's going good. Excited to talk to you about Mad Dogs over here.
Me too. We kept trying to. I kept pushing back this recording, and I felt bad about it because
we wanted to do this the first weekend.
Yeah, and I just had no time to watch it until last weekend, and then I had no time to sit down and record until tonight, and it was just. And even now, it's here in a couple hours, I'm going to be recording this week's episode of The Obsessive Viewer. Spoiler alert: we review The Revenant, but
Oh, the life of working for free.
Exactly. Just no time. But yeah. But this is your first guest appearance on The Obsessive Viewer, so welcome. And
first and most likely the last, with the way that I am on podcasts.
Sure. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about your various projects in terms of writing and podcasting and how you got started and everything.
Yeah, so I do some TV show podcasts. So after we watch the show, we discuss it. The Dead Inside show is on The Walking Dead, and I've actually read the graphic novel for The Walking Dead. I know that makes me sound like a loser, but I'm not, I swear. And then we discuss how each episode happened and compare it to the graphic novel. So it's fun doing that and knowing more than all the viewers. It's fun. It makes me feel really superior with that show. And then The Leftovers, which is an outstanding show. Anybody that hasn't seen The Leftovers, I after the first season, I was like, I really like this show, and I'm glad I'm doing a podcast on it. But after the second season, it was by far the best series last season.
Nice.
Last year of 2015, in my opinion. Do you watch The Leftovers?
It is on my list.
All right, you should put it on the top of your list. I think I've never been saying that to you, haven't I?
Probably. And it's funny because I was a huge Lost fan, so I'm pretty sure that I'll love it.
This second season, it really, I don't want to say it feels like Lost, because when Lost was on, I was really frustrated with it, and actually Lost has become more positive in my mind as time has gone on.
Nice.
In a weird way. When I think back, I'm like, you know what, that was really good. That was really ahead of its time in a lot of ways. Anyway, I highly recommend The Leftovers. And then Better Call Saul, which is starting up, and where we, discussed each episode of Better Call Saul. Better Talk Saul, the Better Call Saul podcast that I'm doing. First time I'm going to be doing and recording and releasing the episodes that night.
I saw that. That is a hefty goal.
Yeah, we're just watching it and then discussing it, and then gonna rock and roll. We're just gonna try it. I haven't done that before. I usually do it the following evening, so it comes out 2 days later.
Right.
But I'm gonna try experience. I'm trying to challenge myself with the podcast a little bit, and we'll see how it goes. So yeah, and then I review movies, written reviews for movies on bgrizzly.com, and that's 1 Z, not 2 Z's for Grizzly. All right.
Well, obviously, all of these links can be found in the show notes of this episode, and also at obsessiveviewer.com/OV153. So that's great. So you have a bunch of different podcasts. What is coming up other than the Better Call Saul one?
Better Call Saul and the Walking Dead one is coming back also. They're both coming back here in 15th, 16th, something like that, of February.
Sweet.
Right after Valentine's Day. Right after Deadpool.
Right. Nice.
Excited for Deadpool? To go completely off the subject?
Oh, I'm pretty excited for it. optimistic for it. I know you are pretty much totally against any comic book movies to an extent. You're very vocal about that.
I'm very hawkish about it on Twitter also. But I'm keeping my expectations extremely low, and I'm just like grumbling about it, and I'm hoping that I'll go and be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah, so I'm excited for it.
I'm strategically keeping my hopes down for it.
Nice. I'm pretty pumped for it, and I'm a sucker for really all of really everything that Marvel Studios is doing, even the bad ones. Pretty much. I mean, I recognize that a lot of it's bad. Not a lot of it, but like the Thor movies, I'm not crazy about. But I like the Captain America movies. I love the Captain American, at least Winter Soldier. I love that. Let's see.
I rewatched that recently, or at least the second half of it. It was on HBO, and I do say understanding the whole Winter Soldier story a little better. I enjoyed the little bit that I watched again of the Winter Soldier a little better now that I kind of understood his storyline a little better.
Nice. So you're going to get the Marvel Studios emblem tattooed on you and start.
I already got the drawings drawn up and everything like that.
Nice.
And, yeah. Pretty soon.
Nice. No, I love it. I'm a sucker for him.
The front of my neck.
Nice. But yeah, I'm a sucker for him, and I'm super excited for Civil War and even X-Men Apocalypse.
I do have to say that I think the trailers for Marvel are some of the best trailers I've ever seen.
Oh, absolutely. The Civil War trailer.
So
what?
Oh, yeah. That Civil War trailer, I think, is the best trailer I've seen in a year.
Oh, it's amazing.
At all. I don't like them at all, and I'm like all excited after I see the trailer for a movie that I'm not into at all. It's really crazy. They do a really good job at trailers, and I do have to say that I do like the X-Men movies because Michael Fassbender.
Yeah,
I'm telling you, he elevates everything, and he doesn't. I think he does an outstanding job. I just recently watched Days of Future Past, and I was blown away by what Michael Fassbender did in that project.
Nice. I love that movie, and it has some story problems at the end, but I'm a sucker for time travel, really anything, so that was right up my alley.
Yeah.
And it fixed a lot of the problems with the franchise that was made by Brett Ratner in the third one.
Yeah.
So, but we're here to talk about Mad Dogs, which is the latest show from Amazon Studios, I guess that's what they're called. It's an original show. It was part of their pilot season last year, which I totally dug the pilot, and I was really excited for the show to get a full season, and but not excited enough to watch it the weekend that it came out.
I also cranked through it really quickly because I had a deadline set forth by you.
Right.
You're the reason that I plowed through it so quickly at the beginning, and then it's been like a week and a half since
it has been. And to be fair, I said I was going to try my best to get it done that first weekend, but things pop up. That's so anyway,
you pushed me to greatness.
Right. It gave you a week and a half to really ruminate on your thoughts and really figure it out.
Stew on them.
Exactly. So anyway, before we get into kind of our broad thoughts on the actual show, which by the way we'll have a non-spoiler section, and then we'll probably dive into a more thorough spoiler discussion of the series as a whole. But we will give you a full warning for it. But before we get to the actual discussion of the show, I want to kind of point out the similarity that this not even really similarity, just this thought that I had is that it's funny. I'm a big fan of Shawn Ryan. I loved The Shield. Like, it's one of my top 3 favorite shows ever.
It was an unbelievably amazing show.
So great. And likewise, I was really excited when Terriers came out, but it got canceled after a season. And I thought it was funny that a lot of people say that Terriers was canceled or didn't succeed because the title was so awful and said nothing about the show, which I can't remember when exactly that was. I was like 09 or
I think
10?
it was like 2009 or 2010.
Yeah, 2009. I said 010, but 09 or 2010. But here we are in 2016, and he has a show called Mad Dogs, which the title says really nothing about the premise or anything. Yet it's not like
be Mad Cats, if anything.
Right, exactly. And I noticed, like, in the plot descriptions of each episode, it says the Mad Dogs. It's like the Mad Dogs go and do this, and the Mad Dogs do this, and I'm like, no one, okay, sure. But I thought that was just interesting.
Some kind of like superhero force, like the Mad Dogs.
Right. The next thing from Marvel. But I just thought it was interesting that the show Terriers was a failure, basically, and was canceled. And a lot of people just say that it was because the name didn't draw an audience and it was aired week to week, so there was a lot of pressure. But here with Amazon, they haven't announced whether or not there will be a season 2, I don't think. But it's just funny that Mad Dogs is, I assume is done better or is more in the public conversation than Terriers was at the time. And I just thought it was an interesting kind of reflection on the age of digital streaming versus airing week to week. Did you have any thoughts like that or anything?
Well, first, I'll say they have plans for 4. This is a based on a UK show, so they have plans for several seasons. So they're hoping for multiple seasons as far as that goes. But yeah, this doesn't feel like a Shawn Ryan show at all.
Right.
And I didn't see Terriers, but I've heard such great things about it. But I think you're right. I think that the name of, the show turned me off from it. And I was a huge S.H.I.E.L.D. fan. I watched that I was an obsessive viewer. Check out the obsessive viewer at ovpodcast.com. I was such a huge fan of it, and that last episode and the end of season 5, situation with a grenade was one of the most chilling moments in television history.
Yep.
But I think that's if your point is that this is a terrible title, I agree.
Right.
But it's based on a UK show, and the UK shows have weird names.
Yeah.
Like Peaky Blinders.
Right.
Well, it's like, would you watch that would anybody watch that if they didn't hear that it's the most amazing show ever? No, but it had no problem on BBC.
Right. That's a good point. But yeah.
Imagine an American show coming out. It's like this upcoming show, Peaky Blinders, or Peaky Blinders. No, I'm messing up the title.
So yeah, I just thought that was an interesting correlation between our viewings, the way we consume media today, and versus then, because there's so much pressure on networks to perform really quickly, even like basic cable networks and stuff like FX. Like, they gave it a full season and everything, and I do recommend checking out Terriers because it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. Obviously it's not the S.H.I.E.L.D. level of greatness, but it's the interplay between what's his name, Donald Logue and
Donald Logue,
and
the
Raymond
other guy
something.
In it, I think
Michael Raymond James, or
yep.
Yeah,
he lives here in San Diego, and I met him in a bar.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's before Terriers came out. I recognized him from True Blood.
Oh, he was great in True Blood.
Yeah, he was in the first season of True Blood, and I was like, oh, it's a guy from True Blood. Like, it was the time that I had just watched True Blood, too. And he told me, I have an upcoming show called Terriers, just check it out. And I was like, okay, and I didn't, and that's probably why the show got canceled.
You failed him. You know what's funny also is we live in this age of, we've gone past the age of shows getting canceled in their first seasons, too. Mm-hmm.
Like, so seldomly does a good show get canceled in its first season, because most good shows aren't on NBC or ABC anymore, and everybody stopped watching those channels because we can't get invested in a show and you cancel it. You cancel shows so eagerly.
Absolutely.
So it's really weird. Like, think of the last HBO show that didn't get past the first season.
Yeah.
John from Cincinnati?
Right? I can't even think of any.
Yeah. See, and that's why we trust HBO. Yeah. Like, I can start an HBO show, and I trust that the story will be completed.
That's true. And didn't The Leftovers just like at least HBO has the thing where like they'll give a show a final season. Yeah, like that's what happened with
Boardwalk Empire.
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, you get a 4-episode final season, but you at least
8 episodes.
No, I think it was 4 episodes.
No, it was 8.
Oh no, I'm thinking of the Newsroom.
Oh yeah. I think that was like 6 episodes.
I think. Well, whatever. Either way.
Right. Anyway,
really shortened final seasons that they'll at least give them. They're like, hey, we're going to let you, because that develops more of a trust with your audience.
Oh, totally. And I think it's kind of funny because at least in those 2 examples of The Newsroom and Boardwalk Empire, I did not like the final seasons of either show. And I think that part of it is that the PR for at least for Boardwalk Empire, like oh my God, why can't I think of the showrunner's name? Terrence Winter.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, Terrence Winter. He was saying like, oh yeah, we went into by the end of the previous season, we figured, okay, we'll have 8 more episodes for the last season. I'm like, no, that's not. It's weird because you didn't write it that way. Because I mean, they wrote the final season with those 8 episodes in mind, but it was so clearly like a rushed thing.
Yep. It felt rushed too.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
But I think that show wasn't good after the events that transpired at the end of the second season. So for me, I wasn't invested in the show anymore. I didn't care. And same with the Newsroom. I think the Newsroom. I'm a huge Aaron Sorkin guy.
Mm-hmm.
Huge Aaron Sorkin guy.
Me too.
I love The West Wing. I've rewatched it like always. I'm like always rewatching that show. And I think that had an outstanding pilot.
Yeah.
And then it just kind of wavered, and I think it had its moments, but I don't recommend the Newsroom to anybody, and I still recommend the West Wing.
Yeah,
One thing I was going to say is is the worst that HBO's done us is probably one of their best shows, which was Deadwood.
Oh yeah, I've still never watched Deadwood.
It's that crushed us because, and I think that HBO learned from that and was like, the thing was the sets got destroyed, so they couldn't they were going to do a TV movie to end the story. So I think that they learned from that with Boardwalk Empire and Newsroom is do a shortened season, give them their ending, and then let's move on, because once sets are destroyed, that's it.
Right. That's true.
But so anyway, along this, our point is, I do think that Mad Dogs will be picked up for another season.
Yeah. I think so too. It's of the 2 Amazon original programs that I've seen the past month or so, between this and
High Castle?
the Man in the High Castle. Between this and Man in the High Castle, this was definitely. I like this quite a bit more. Although both of them kind of had some pieces of it that I wasn't too crazy about, which we'll get into more of that as we go on in the conversation.
Let's talk about the pilot.
Yes. So.
Have you heard me talk about the pilot before? Is that why you asked me? Because you've heard me raving about the pilot of Mad Dogs?
I think I heard you talk about it at one point, and then you also DM'd me one day and was like, hey, check out the pilot. And I was like, I already saw it like months ago, but it was great.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I saw this when it first came out, like 18 months ago. And I still say, regardless of, the ups and downs of this first season, that this was on my top 3 pilots I've ever seen. I would put it my top 3 pilots is Lost, Breaking Bad, and Mad Dogs. I just think this is as good as a pilot could be. I don't think you can make a pilot better than this.
I'll agree to an extent. I had some issues with the pilot that I didn't realize that I had. Well, I wouldn't really necessarily call them issues, but I had some I guess issues is the closest word I can use with it that I didn't realize until I saw the second episode. But we can get into that in a second. But I do agree that this was a freaking beautiful pilot. I mean, they shot it in Puerto Rico in 4K.
The greens are green.
So amazing.
The darks are dark and the brights are bright. This is a beautiful looking. It's the whole show is shot really well. Absolutely,
and that's one of the things that I was kind of concerned about when I was watching the pilot was can they sustain this? I mean, because this is a pilot, and I mean, will the actual series carry over with that kind of quality? And I mean, it does. It's like every episode, everything is just so beautiful.
Here's the thing for me is I always am I'm how they say that the problem with heroin, among many problems, is when you try it once, you're always chasing that dragon. You're always trying to get that feeling you got from your first time. I don't know from experience.
Right.
Wink, wink. No, I really have never done heroin, guys. But I with Lost for me, which was the first I watched from start to finish, every episode on DVD, the way that we binge shows now.
Yeah.
Because I started watching it during its second season, and my friend had the DVD, and he was like, hey, we should check this first episode out. And I was like, okay, whatever. And as soon as it ended, I turned to him, I was like, can we watch the next episode? Do you mind if we watch the next episode, right? Like, you immediately want to watch the next episode. And Lost was so good at that, so addicting. And I don't feel like a lot of shows are addicting after their pilots right now. I know that we're like in the golden age, but I feel like I'm doing homework on some shows by watching it. Like I feel like I have to watch it to be in the know of the show that everyone's talking about. But there's very few shows where I'm like, that I have to watch the next episode because I don't want to sleep. I want to stay up and keep watching this. And that's what this pilot was for me. Unfortunately, I had to wait a year and a half
right.
to see the next episode, but still, that's what it was for me. I was super, super excited about this. And I saw this pilot probably 4 times, 4 or 5 times, showing people it and all that kind of stuff. I just thought it was a very well done pilot, a star-studded cast.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, let's talk about the cast, because going into it, I already loved Romany Malco and Steve Zahn, and I was kind of blown away by is it Ben Chaplin?
Yep.
He was
we
just
all know him as the love interest from Truth and Cats and Dogs, the Truth About Cats and Dogs, the 90s.
All right.
Triangle movie.
Yeah. He was also basically the Billy Zane character in the original Mad Dogs from the UK, which I thought was interesting.
But I think he's a great actor, and I love to see him switch over and want to do more in the American version of the show. So
yeah,
I think it's cool.
Oh yeah.
And Romany Malco was unceremoniously written off of Weeds.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. I only watched like the first couple episodes of Weeds, and it really wasn't for me.
I was Weeds when I first watched it. I did not watch the final season of it, but yeah, he was on it. He just wasn't anymore. A new season came, and he just wasn't there.
Oh, that sucks.
It was weird.
Yeah,
there was no. But I guess he wanted to be off it, and yada yada yada.
Okay.
But, and then Michael Imperioli.
Yeah, Michael Imperioli, who I've seen like 9 episodes of The Sopranos. I need to go back and actually watch all of it, but
wow.
Yeah.
Sopranos is nowadays Sopranos is really hard to get into, but once you get into a certain level in a certain season, it is very Godfather.
That's what I'm hoping for, because I got through those 9 episodes, and I was watching it at the gym on my tablet, and I was like, this is not gym appropriate. So
super hard to get into the first couple seasons, though. I will give you that completely.
Yeah.
But yeah, Steve Zahn, I haven't seen him in a bunch of things. Mm-hmm. Michael Imperioli, I've only seen him in the stupid 1800 commercial ads. So it was good to see them all in that working on a project together. And Billy Zane, who I think is a very underrated actor. I wish I saw him more often. I remember first seeing him on Tales from the Crypt movie, and then
oh wow,
he was the main character on Demon Knight. Oh, and he was also the Phantom from the movie.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And then he was on Titanic, and then he has really been on a lot of things since then. Yeah. But he was the love interest. I mean, the fiance, the heavy-handed bad guy in Titanic.
Yeah, Titanic. I'm not. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyway,
are you not a fan of Titanic? Is that
no, I'm not. I don't think it's really worth discussing. But I think he was the least of the problems with that movie.
We'll talk about this off the air sometime.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Anyway,
I thought this pilot was full of surprises and a great feeling, a great vibe that really sucks you in, and it leaves you with the most like what the hell is going on feeling, and it sets up a series perfectly.
I agree. I agree completely with all of those points, and I agree that it set up the dynamics so well. And it sets up the chemistry between the characters so well, but the
chemistry is perfect.
Oh, just absolutely perfect.
A bunch of friends from college that don't talk to each other anymore and kind of resent each other.
Yeah.
For various things that have happened throughout their lives.
Yeah. There's
pretending to be friends, kind of. They're like, oh, we used to know each other, so we're getting together.
Exactly, and there's a great line where I want to say it's
Chaplin says it.
Yeah, I want to say it's where Steve Zahn's character says we're best buds, and then I think it's him, and then Joel replies with "No, we're not. We don't even like each other." And it's like that sets up just the whole dynamic is just explained in those 2 lines, and it's just so perfect.
So the only thing that we have in common is that we used to know each other or something like that.
Yeah, yeah.
That adds on to that. But yeah, exactly. I completely agree
with
that. I actually wrote about this on. I did a review on this on BeGrizzly.com, and I just said the setup was so perfect. Unfortunately, to move just a second past the pilot, I think they spike it to the ground immediately in its second and third episodes.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh god, I was just gonna say the problem immediately at the start of episode 2. I just immediately realized that one of the problems I had with the pilot is that it's almost too centered around the friends, and that there's no real villains or any supporting characters really established. So by the start of the second episode, you kind of get this. It's effective because they're at the center of this kind of mystery / criminal underworld that they're brought into in a foreign land, but it's also like it's so hard to really connect to any of the other characters who come in because you don't really know what they're up against. Really, there's not a really defined villain.
You can tell. I think it's good though. I think it's mysterious. It's a clearly powerful force that's mysterious. I think that was actually one of the strongest parts throughout the show.
Interesting.
I think as we find out more about them, it becomes less scary.
Yeah,
it was kind of scary at the beginning, but what I do think is that they did way too much of them bickering. Very frustrating when they're dealing with a situation that they need to deal with right now, and they start bickering about life back on in the United States. It's like, why are you bickering about this right now? Like, this is not the time. How stupid could you be? It became very frustrating. Also, they made some really stupid decisions. I think the point of this is it's a bunch of regular guys who aren't cut out for the situation.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the situation. But if I'm watching it, and I'm also not cut out for these situations of murder and drug lords or whatever is going on, I'm not cut out for it. But I know I would be making better decisions than they're making. That's not a good sign.
Yeah, and I had trouble with the bickering too, but the part of the show, at least in those early episodes, that really kind of hooked me was when these characters paired off with one another. They immediately start talking about the other characters that aren't in the scenes because they just don't trust each other, and they're kind of trying to figure out. They're trying to get a read on everyone else's motivations and everything. And I thought that was really well handled, and it really was a great way to bring out the baggage of the characters and their shared history and everything. But I agree. It reached a point where the bickering got a bit much. There's one episode in particular that we can talk about when when we get into spoiler territory. But it was like it just the motivations of the characters. It seemed more to set up. Yeah, it seemed more to set up a conceit for an episode rather than actually organically come to that moment. And then also a lot of the situations of it, like those early episodes are so quick and so well paced for my tastes that once it reaches a point where everything that's happening to them kind of starts becoming more happenstance and coincidental, it seems more like just to
get into a fender bender that causes a huge problem, that kind of stupid stuff.
Yeah. They have to go through the episode trying to get money back.
4 episodes. The first season of the UK version was 4 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like this was 4 episodes of show with a bunch of needless stuff built into it.
Oh yeah, they definitely pushed some things out there that didn't really need it. This could have cut out maybe 2 or 3 episodes and been fine. But yeah, and
I also think that
go ahead.
There was this is tinkering on spoiler, but I'm not. But it's not. It was a Weekend at Bernie's subplot in it that was so out of place and not funny and not interesting and was like, what are you idiots doing? Like, how could you be thinking of this? And it was super dark and done in a comedic way, and I didn't think it was funny or dark, and I just thought it was stupid. I was sitting there being like, decisions you guys are making, again, are really bad, and how could you be doing this? And I'll talk about that more in spoilers.
Yeah, we'll talk more about that in spoilers, but I'll meet you halfway there and say that element of the plot in those early episodes really went on way too long. But at the first moment when that comes up, I'm like, I was with it. That was a genuine like WTF moment for me, in terms of what they were going to do.
Headphones on somebody and watch them start dancing around like Weekend at Bernie's too. I'm sure my Weekend at Bernie's references are going over a lot of people's heads right now.
Oh, well, you know.
I'm still gonna...
Well, we're planning a Weekend at Bernie's retrospective on the podcast soon.
That being said, I do think that there's events that happen at the end of the 4th episode that I think it really starts the show off on a better pace. And
absolutely.
By the end, it was a pretty... it was definitely by far worth a watch.
Oh, yeah.
And I think has a pretty good ending, setting up a second season that I find incredibly interesting.
Same here. Oh, yeah. And final thing for non-spoilers, and then we'll get into spoilers for this. But something that I noticed in terms of just the way that it was shot and the way that certain, at least the cold opens in particular, were handled, it felt like it evoked a lot of memories of Breaking Bad, particularly the opening of episode 5, Hat, where it's very silent. Everyone's silent. No one says anything, and there's focus is being paid on a certain object in the scene. And it just kind of plays out like a small little short silent film, and it just reminded me of Breaking Bad. And it seems like although the show was clearly drawing inspiration from Breaking Bad in that respect, at least, it's not as strong as Breaking Bad was. And I guess that can kind of dive into my overall thoughts on the show, and then we can get your thoughts and then go into spoilers. But overall, I was very well invested, or I was very much invested in the story being told and the character dynamics that were going on, even though some of the elements of the story really lost me. There's one episode in particular that we'll talk about in a moment where it just completely derailed everything for me. Like I have in my notes, like it feels like a completely different show, and it was just so off-putting to me. But once we got past that, there was clearly a reason why they did certain things, and there are definite reasons for them to make the choices that they did, the writers, I mean, and it brought the characters to a place that I was riveted, and by the end of it, I was very much excited for the prospect of season 2. So, yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. And what'd you think overall?
So if you asked me, I think I messaged you when I was watching the second, third episodes or whatever.
Yeah,
and I was pretty much like, "This is bad."
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like it, and I couldn't believe that I went from raving about a show so much within 2 episodes to being like, this is bad. Like I don't think this is a good show.
Mm-hmm.
But it rebounded from that completely. I think that it did fall so bad very quickly for me in those couple episodes that it tarnished my view, my thoughts on the show in general.
Mm-hmm.
But all in all, I think it leveled itself out once it figured out what kind of show it wanted to be. I think it just lost its footing right out the gate. They had a huge break between shooting the pilot, and every show does.
Yeah.
But the fact is that, I think that my expectations were set a lot higher because of that big gap that I had, and I only had this one episode to watch over and over again.
Right.
So also there's a recasting from the pilot. I don't know if you noticed.
I didn't.
But
who's recast?
The cop that comes in to visit them in the pilot.
Oh. Huh, I didn't catch that.
One. I think that they tried to make her a different character, but it was clear that was supposed to be the same person.
Right. Huh.
But and I kind of wish they had that original person in it,
Mm-hmm.
but I guess it's not that big of a deal.
Right.
I think that, like I said, it found its footing after episode 4, and I think it is definitely worth a watch. And a lot of shocking moments, a lot of moments that will surprise you. Especially things that happen in the pilot, end of episode 4, and toward the end. It's very shocking. You can't get too attached to anybody in this show, I'll say that.
Right. All right, so that's our non-spoiler discussion. We're going to go into spoilers here in a moment. Just hang tight and check the show notes if you want to, or I don't know if we're going to do a potpourri section or not, so if you haven't watched the show, go and watch it and then come back and listen to it. So we're going to go into spoilers now.
Okay, I'm out of here. Let's go. Let's just go.
We run. They will track us down.
You made your choices. I made mine.
Thought it was a nightmare.
What's going on down here?
Oh, it's so true.
Have you done something wrong?
Don't go walking slow, 'cause the devil's on the loose.
A cat just walked in.
We're not safe.
Get back in the car! Get back in the car!
Hey, take that off. We're a team. We're best buds.
No, we're not. We don't even like each other.
Tell me the truth and I will send you home. They are your friends, but they are not your family.
You didn't enjoying your stay? Wonderful. Really fun. Wonderful time.
Run through the jungle.
Okay, so we're spoilers on for Mad Dogs. And the first thing I want to bring up in the spoiler discussion is that the series opens up with a shot of them, the four of them, painted in this weird makeup, just running through a field with weapons and everything, just screaming. And I'd completely forgotten about that until I came back and rewatched the pilot while watching this, and I was really, really let down that amounts to a throwaway like gag at the end of episode 4, and I felt like that was just one of many problems I had with episode 4 as a whole. What do you think of
just a throwaway
that?
thing, and that's it. It's like it really seemed like, oh, this is where the end of the season is going to end.
Yeah,
with them being warriors or whatever, and then they did it just for one quick thing, and then they just washed it all off, and we're done with it.
Yeah,
So stupid.
Yeah,
that was so stupid.
Yeah, and episode 4 was just the episode where it really tested my patience, because it's this somewhat bottle episode where they are. Basically, there's a sniper, the guy with the rifle has them contained there, and so they're panicking and they're running around, and they decide to barricade themselves in the kitchen, which felt really silly and really forced from my perspective.
They're in there with the dead body that they decided to put in the fridge for no freaking reason. They wanted to cut him up and put him in the fridge. Like,
yeah.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah, and then also when they were panicking and everything, they cut the power, and that felt so contrived to me, and felt like, okay, well, we need some kind of drama for them to prevail from this and everything. That just felt so just lazy to me and so forced. Having said that,
the whole subplot about the body went on for way too long, and it was really stupid, and that was just filler. It felt like filler, like they were just filling up an entire episode. And it wasn't satisfying at all. It wasn't interesting. They were handling things as stupid as they could, and I get it. They're supposed to be idiots, but the thing I do think about episode 4 is it ended with Ben's character, Joel going nuts and shooting the cop.
Yeah. I thought
that was awesome.
I thought that was amazing, and it opened up the story so much, and it opened up a whole new avenue for stories for the season going on. However, I hate to say this because who directed it? That episode was directed by Clark Johnson, who he's directed episodes of The Shield and The Wire and everything, but that scene itself was just really shot really awkwardly and really weird. It was just repeated, and then like there was emphasis on like her leg, and it was just a really peculiarly shot scene, and that kind of took me out of it. But the impact of what he did and the impact of what happened was really fantastic. And as much as I disliked the conceit of having them trapped in the kitchen in that episode, I thought that really brought out some really great characterization between the characters. Like, they weren't really bickering or anything. Well, they were bickering some, but it was more, they were opening up about their problems and their history and everything. Up until then, they were kind of back and forth and kind of getting little jabs here and there, but this had kind of opened up, particularly with Joel and I can't remember Steve's aunt. Oh, Kobe. With them. Kobe. And I just thought that was really
to get them out of the house. I think once they got out of the house too, I think that it was good.
Oh yeah.
Felt fresh while they were traveling. It's like all you're thinking is why they're so far away from the house. I think Kobe's character was arguably him and Joel, not their chemistry, but their individual characters, I think were probably the most riveting, because Kobe's just not a good dude at all.
Right.
And he's constantly deciding if he's going to stab his friends in the back.
Yeah.
And you have Gus, who is a good guy, who just isn't as interesting being a good guy, and Lex, which is Michael Imperioli's character, which I think was the least fleshed out.
Me too. And this is kind of jumping around a little bit, but I felt like his subplot or his scenes in the finale just felt so it felt so disconnected from everything else. It was this hallucination with him and the dead cop that it felt like they were just really trying to reach for something to keep him in the script for the final episode. It was really awkward. Yeah.
And I thought he was definitely dead when he got stabbed too.
Me too.
I wish they killed him when he got stabbed.
Yeah, that would have been interesting. I'm glad that none of them.
Sad for a minute, and I felt emotion, which I didn't feel enough on the show.
Right. Yeah, I'll agree with that. And to your point about Kobe and him being kind of a horrible character or a horrible person, I didn't realize this until I was really making my notes, but he was very reminiscent of Shane Vendrell from The Shield to me.
Oh, a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, and I love that. I love that kind of characterization.
Yeah, and Shane didn't really get like that until later, obviously. Right. But I'll say I think probably one of the stupidest and most irritating subplots was Erica, the woman that they had gotten into the fender bender with, and then she stole money from them, and they had to keep getting the money back from them, and Gus was kind of in love with her, kind of in a weird way or whatever.
That they found so many ways to bring her back, and I didn't mind it that much, but there was like one or two instances where I was like there was one, I think it was early on, one of the first times they brought her back is after the fender bender and after they gave her the money, they had to go through this whole song and dance, I think that episode or the next episode, where they had to get back the $10,000, and it was just like that was the first inkling where it felt just really just like they're kind of just kind of forcing something to happen to really bring the plot up.
They got in because they were bickering.
Yeah.
It was just after and they were bickering and they got into trouble with the body and they were bickering and it was just so it was irritating to watch.
Yeah.
I was irritated watching it. I think that to go completely off from my irritation, I think that this show did a really good job at really memorable villains though. Mm-hmm. I think the cat, who was never given a name other than the cat, was a very interesting villain. And he was, when we finally got him unmasked, it was really creepy. He was like attacking him like an animal. Mm-hmm. I think the CIA, the CIA guy.
Oh yeah.
I don't remember.
Aaron.
I think he was
so cool.
Very interesting. Always taking protein shakes, talking about working out. I think he was a compelling villain. I think he did a good job. And then the other guy, the guy with the white hair.
Yeah, I couldn't remember his name. The kind of older guy.
I thought he was a great villain too.
Yeah.
All the way up into the end.
Right.
For him, which was a nice surprise twist, and we had some memorable guest appearances. Obviously, Billy Zane we didn't know was a guest appearance, and he ended up being a guest appearance. But Allison Tolman,
yes, I was just going to bring her up in episode 5. I was so pleased to see her because I just watched Fargo season 1 not too long ago, and she was fantastic in the show, and I was so happy when she came back at the end of the season because I thought that her end at episode 5, like I was going to be just so irritated if that was the end.
And there was Ted Levine too.
Oh yeah,
played Buffalo Bill Cody on Silence of the Lambs,
right?
Among many other movies like Heat, who was the FBI agent or whatever. Who ended up having no point whatsoever.
Right, I can't remember his name.
The cop, the crooked cop, was a very intriguing villain as well.
Yeah.
But to go back to Allison Tolman a little bit, you know one thing I really like about her is there's a stereotype for kind of overweight actresses that they have to be comic relief.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely see that.
Rosie O'Donnell or Roseanne or Melissa McCarthy, they have to be like these zany, goofy people. And I love that she doesn't play that at all. She is a straight-up actress in most of her roles.
She's quirky in a lot of them, but she's very grounded.
Yeah, she's quirky in a realistic person sense, not a slapstick way.
Oh, absolutely.
Like Melissa McCarthy is.
Right.
Not cracking jokes, but she's kind of quirky in the way that, you know, a person, like a girl would be in real life.
Yeah.
And I love that she doesn't get typecast in stupid roles, and I think she picks her roles really well, and I like to see her every time I do. I think she's a phenomenal actress.
I agree, and I loved the probably one of my favorite scenes. Maybe I don't know if I'd say the entire season, but there's a scene with them in the car with her in episode 5 that I just want to point it out because it's almost out of character for the entire show. It almost kind of it felt a little out of place, but it's the point where they're all kind of bickering back and forth about how people act toward women and how people act toward minorities, and like she's standing her ground. She's talking about how Kobe looked at her legs and that made her uncomfortable. Like just the way, like she has just such a way of just projecting her kind of I don't really want to say dominance, but she can really control a situation and control a scene from her energy. And I just thought that was just such a great scene.
Isn't that obvious when a guy checks a girl out? Is it that obvious?
I really want to hope that it's not that obvious.
So do I.
Yeah.
But it's funny too that she carries a level of attractiveness with her too, with just the way that she carries herself.
Oh yeah, and kind of a counterpoint to that scene is later in the season when she comes back, and I think she's talking to Gus with the FBI guy, and then she's just like going off at him about like 4 grown men didn't go down to try to help her. Like you guys didn't even help or didn't even think to help to find her and everything, and like. That scene and that's like I love the humor of it. It's a very dark humor, and it might be because it was Allison Tolman doing it, but it kind of reminded me a little bit of like Fargo or like a Coen Brothers type of thing. So I really appreciated that, and I'm really hopeful that she'll be back if and when it gets to season 2, because I thought she was just phenomenal.
I could see her not being back, but I think that she's going to kind of be in high demand as things goes on, but maybe
That's
not.
True.
You know, randomly I remember her having a small role in Prison Break, and that was I found out recently that was actually her first role.
What season?
It was just random. It was spoiler to Prison Break, but it was when they're out. She played some nurse.
Okay.
It was a really random little thing.
Oh, so season 2? The Manhunt season?
2 or 3.
Okay. It would have had to been season 2 then.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's funny that there's all these random roles that people have, like Amy Adams in The Office.
Yeah.
And I remember them, and then they end up becoming huge stars. Or Kate Mara was a random character in 24, and they end up becoming big stars. And I remember them, and I see, I'm like, that's the person from that. Anyway, so I love to see when that happens, because I think that Allison Tolman has kind of become a bigger star.
Same here. Also Nick Offerman in season 2 of 24.
Yeah, with one of the rednecks or whatever.
Right.
That wants to beat up the Middle Eastern guy that they're with.
Yep. That was one of my... We'll have to have a longer conversation about 24 at some point.
I would love to have a long conversation.
Yeah. I'll keep that in
my
mind.
favorite show of all time, right?
Right. And we'll get derailed there, but it was one of my... You talk about how Lost was your kind of introduction to binge watching shows. Like 24 was that for me. Like it was a drug for me.
Well, after I got caught up on, and I'll keep this brief, but after I got caught up on Lost, because I started watching it in the second season, so once I got 22 episodes in or whatever, I called my friend. I was talking to my friend, who is now an editor on a bunch of TV shows.
That's awesome.
He actually started working on Breaking Bad when he was interning out of college, and I was like, "What's the next show I should watch?" Because I'm so obsessed with Lost. He was like, "You got to check out 24." So then I started watching 24 seconds. That's and then just like you said, it was a drug.
Mm-hmm.
Like I lost a relationship because of 24, because all I wanted to do was watch 24. So
that's fantastic.
It's just a thing that we talked about after we broke up. She was like, all you wanted to do was watch 24. You wanted to go home and watch 24. I was like, yeah, freaking Jack Bauer.
Oh God, that's fantastic. Yeah, we'll definitely have to talk more at length about that. Yeah.
But anyway, I do think I think that after the 4th episode for me, the show was good.
See,
miserable for me for episode 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was good. I think the first episode was great. I just think it never got back to the point that it was in the pilot ever, for the most part.
Interesting. I thought that episodes 2 and 3 were just like, I was still with it and everything. Season 4 was a little bit of a decline, but season 5 with Allison Tolman was great, and then Episode 6, that was the episode that I was like I have in my notes, I have a little notebook and I put the episode title after each episode or before each episode, and then I make the notes, and the first note I have is this just turned into a completely different show, WTF, and it feels like they're stalling. It's the episode where they are taken into quarantine for smallpox, and it felt like such a lengthy break in the story just to get them to go their separate ways for a few episodes.
Here's the thing I was going to say. I'm okay with that, but at that point, they weren't doing two things that were really pissing me off. One was making really bad decisions. They weren't able to make any decisions, so I wasn't getting frustrated. I may have been a little bored, but I wasn't getting frustrated. I wasn't actively disliking what I was seeing. And secondly, they weren't on a level of bickering that was getting them into stupid situations. And they weren't dealing with a Weekend at Bernie's situation. What are we going to do with this body? Oh, let's bury it. Oh, never mind, something's digging it up. Okay, let's put it in the freezer. Oh, we can't fit it in. Let's cut off his wrists. Like, you would, like, people, like, would you be, like, you wouldn't be able to just cut off your old friend's wrist, even if you don't like the guy anymore and you thought he was a dick. You wouldn't be able to cut his wrists off and cut his feet off. It was just unwatchable for me. It was like, I was sitting there audibly groaning, being like, "Oh my god, this is so ridiculous." So, but I do agree that there was still filler after that, but I wasn't actively hating what I was watching like I was before.
Interesting. It's funny because I was able to accept the whole chopping up their friends' body parts and everything. Like it was a bit of a stretch, but I was able to buy it because they're in a very crazy situation. Yeah. But with the quarantine thing, it just felt so long, and that's kind of like it just felt like they were just stalling and everything. And then once they did get to the point where they were spread out and everything like that, that was solid. I really, really enjoyed that because it afforded them to afforded the show to showcase how they act when they're on their own and everything. Like in particular, Kobe's character, he's he's a slimeball. He went to Guatemala and he was he was just kind of off on his own. Like he even ignored the call from Joel that he'd been kidnapped and everything. So I liked that. I just thought that was just such a long walk for that went absolutely nowhere. Yeah, so I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just I don't know. I was just pleased to get past the house because the house was just not a good storyline for me. And honestly, if I wasn't doing this podcast with you or I wasn't reviewing it for BGrizzly.com, you can find that at BGrizzly, GRIZLY.com. Shameless plug. I wouldn't have finished it. I wouldn't have gotten through that. I would have stopped
Interesting.
Maybe I would have gotten back to it, but I would not have plowed through it the way that I did. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I was that frustrated.
Wow. That's, yeah. I will say that in those few episodes after the well, I was really agitated because they spent so, like, they had the cat in the well.
Oh, that was so stupid.
That was dumb. And then
ask questions.
Yeah. Ask questions. And then the entire next episode, or for the most part of the next episode, all of them, like, no one is at the house, and it's like an open villa that they know that they can just jump the fence and everything. Like, why would they leave him there for all four of them to go out on their own, or to go out and do whatever they were doing? I was just like, I was so agitated about that.
Yep. See, all these bad decisions that they were making was, from a filmmaking perspective, that's not a problem, but from a storytelling perspective, that's a huge problem because it takes me completely out of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't fun. Like you can see people doing stupid things and still have fun with it, but when the show is presenting itself in the way this is, it's just I just knew we were getting to unnecessary situations that we didn't have to get into. And that can really harm a movie or a show for me, and it did with this. I think that the shock of they needed the shock of him killing the police officer at the end in the pool to really snap me back into it and be like, dang,
right?
Because I was shocked when that happened.
Yeah,
and he did it so violently, and he shot her so many times. I thought that was a great way to kind of snap me out of the funk and kind of get me okay with it. Once they left that, and then the showrunners kind of found their footing, I feel like.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I criticized the filming of that scene, but the expression on Joel's face and the acting of Ben Chaplin in that scene was just fantastic.
Yep.
Yeah. So after the whole quarantine thing and after they get separated, we get the kind of CIA arc with Aaron, who I can't remember the actor's name who plays him, but I just thought that was just like that character alone, Aaron, brought so much fun. It was so much fun, and he brought so much energy into the mix. I just thought it was just fantastic.
And it was clear they were trying to make these quirky villains and these memorable villains, and so I think that they were pretty close to trying too hard with him, but it worked. It worked for me. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I noticed that kind of toward the end of the season, as they're doing that thing for the CIA, basically. I noticed that it was a nice arc for the characters in that they had their moment where they were reunited at the beginning, and like that was the impetus of the entire show. Then they had this kind of distrustful bickering and everything, and then they got separated, and then when they got back together, you kind of see this. I wouldn't go so far as to say this new appreciation for each other, but there was a run at the end of the episode or of the season over the length of a couple episodes where it seemed like most of the characters had this new like they were more willing to kind of go out on a limb and save each other's lives. There were moments where each one kind of just saved each other's lives. I'm thinking of the mine scene with Lex, which I thought that in general was just kind of, I don't know. I liked what was said about the characters in that scene, but I thought that the method, like a minefield, just felt a little out of place for the show. But yeah, I liked how they did that.
Could have done a better job too. Like the cat, and when you figure out the whole situation, the cat should have taken them and interrogated them and said, "Where's the boat?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Hey, it's here. We don't know anything about this."
Yep.
Because it should be very obvious that these guys are idiots and have no idea what's going on. And then he goes, "Okay." Then he kills all of them and gets the boat, and the whole series doesn't exist. And those guys all live. Mm-hmm. All the villains live and continue to do what they're doing.
Exactly. I mean, I didn't have that much of a problem with that, but I mean, when you put it that way, yeah, there are some certain shortcuts that could have been taken, but I think for the most part, the actual arc of the characters is what I latched onto more than anything. Although I was very disappointed with a lot of the stalling that the writers did.
It felt like stalling too, and that's not a good sign.
Yeah, absolutely.
What about the killing of the two drug dealers in the restaurant?
Oh yeah,
that was cool.
That was really cool. That was really cool. And I kind of wish that Joel had more. Yeah, that was Joel, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I wish that there was. I mean, we saw a lot of growth for him in terms of becoming what he becomes at the end.
Yeah. Now he's the new
Milo.
Milo, correct.
Yeah, and I thought that was fantastic. And I kind of wish that if anything else, like that almost is to the detriment of like Romney Malco's character and Michael Imperioli's character. But I think that just the growth of Joel as a character was fantastic, and Kobe as a character as well.
How about this? What if this whole thing was just a prequel for the British series, because he is Milo in the British series?
Oh, that would be interesting. I kind of like that.
But I guess the British accent would be weird, and him having a college history with them would be weird. But
right.
Other than that,
yeah,
it's an interesting idea.
Yeah. One thing in the finale that I freaking loved this was the moment where Kobe is in a position to give Joel up, and while it's juxtaposed with Joel calling Kobe's wife, and you get the scene where you think like, oh my god, there's going to be like this big reveal that, you know, Joel has been sleeping with Helena this whole time or something, but he ends up just telling her like, hey, you should stay with him and all that and give him another shot, while it's cut between Kobe telling the authorities like, yeah, backstabbing him. I was like, that was just so well executed and so done so well. I absolutely loved that.
like I said, I really liked Kobe's character as much as he was good television.
Yeah. Yep.
And I think Steve Zahn he's always playing the comic relief, and he wasn't really comic relief in this. He seemed like he was gonna be. He was kind of the doofus friend, but he's an asshole. He's not a good person, and I think that it caused some compelling television.
Yeah.
So.
He's Shane Vendrell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
is there anything else you want to talk about before we kind of wrap it up a little bit? We touched on a little bit the FBI character, and his name was Conrad Toll in the season in the show. I thought that he was. I thought it was effective from a comedic standpoint that he was kind of introduced as this threat and everything, and then kind of he has a moment where Gus tells him that the sketches that he has is obviously the same person. It's him. It's like kind of pulls the rug out from under him, and he seems like just a dim investigator guy.
Yeah. You talking about Ted Levine's character?
Yeah, Ted Levine's character. And I like that, but it kind of felt like that character almost didn't fit into the show there at that point. But I still appreciated that, and I liked how it was.
Dumbass and pointless.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was something big going on with him, and it ended up being nothing. And I think the show did that a lot, which was a little unfortunate. It kind of thought it was doing red herrings, but it ended up just being a waste of our time.
Right.
But I was gonna say that I think that we haven't even talked about. What was it, Jesus or whatever?
Oh yeah.
Ended up being killed by his own daughter, and his daughter is now taking control. I wonder if she's going to end up being a character as if the show continues. Obviously, she has to be.
Right.
Still much more to go with that.
Yeah. The entire mystery surrounding Jesus that ran throughout most of the episodes, I didn't really care about it, and that's part of the issue that I had with the show being not really focused on an antagonist. Like it didn't grip me that much. Like, as soon as they showed the phone and they had the voicemail, the robotic voicemail play, I was just like, that's just silly. I couldn't connect to that at all. And it didn't do much for me. The reveal of Jasmine is her name, being Jesus and killing her father, who was Jesus, and all that. I thought that was compelling and that was interesting. But it was still just, it kind of came a little late in the show for me to really attach myself to it.
Do you remember that actress from The Shield?
Amelia, yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
She was in the whole, I believe, final season as informant, right?
Yeah. She, yep.
All right. Anything else we want to say about Mad Dogs? I think I've said what I need to say. I think that I think it was. I liked it less than I planned on liking it. But I'll definitely see more. It's exciting. I really love Ben Chaplin's character.
Me too.
And I love Joel. I love Kobe. I'm pretty cool with Gus. I think he's cool. I think Michael Imperioli, I think he did a pretty good job in the final episodes, but you didn't flesh him out at all until then. You just made him a little wiener.
Yeah.
I'm bummed that there's no more Cat in it also.
Right. Oh, yeah. Or Aaron.
He was kind of killed off without an issue. I was cool with Aaron being killed off the way he was, but the Cat just out of nowhere just shot with an arrow, and then we see this new character that we've never seen before hiding in the bushes. I think it would have been better for them to end that episode with just him getting hit in the face with the arrow, and then the episode ends. Yeah,
I guess so. I just love the character of Aaron, and I do agree that the Cat did just get kind of
wasted.
Yeah. I did like the shock value of that final episode for him, that final moment. So yeah, and that's basically all I have to say about Mad Dogs. I'm looking forward to hearing if it gets renewed, because Shawn Ryan hasn't really had that much success post Shield in terms of long running shows that much. So I'm hoping that this one lives on for a while. So is that basically it? Should we count it out?
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. Well, for my my podcasts, if you like Better Call Saul, it's called Better Talk Saul, and you can search all these in your podcast app. There's Dead Inside Show on The Walking Dead, which search Dead Inside Show, and then the Guilty Remnant podcast for The Leftovers. Absolutely have to watch. I know that I recommend too many things, and I'm sorry, I watch a lot of things, but I also hate a lot of things and recommend people don't watch them. So I try not to be overly recommendation about over recommend stuff.
Right.
That's what I was looking for. Anyway, that's me. Oh, you follow me on Twitter at Schuckster. That's SCHUCKSTER.
Nice. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me again. And again, all of these links can be found in the show notes of this episode and also at obsessiveviewer.com/OV153. So, Dylan, once again, thank you for joining me. It's been a blast, and we'll have to set up a 24 episode at some point.
We have to. We absolutely have to.
Oh, yeah. All right. Thanks, man.
Anyway, I'm ready to go when you are.
Okay, cool. Let me just get back to the note on here, and then...
Put my pants back on. All right. I realize that this is a different mood than I thought it was going to be, so...
Well, you know, it's still early.
We'll play it by ear.
Right. Jesus. Okay, so I'm going to open it up with saying my name and the intro and everything, and then I'll do the whole weekly
Thank
movie
you for
and TV
listening
podcast,
to The Obsessive Viewer, presented by ObsessiveViewer.com. You can find more of our episodes at ovpodcast.com, and you can subscribe to the show on iTunes, Stitcher, or your preferred podcast app. The Obsessive Viewer's theme song is An Eclipse of Events and is provided by Loudlike from their EP Mistakes We Must Make. You can find that and more great music from them on iTunes and like their Facebook page at facebook.com/loudlikemusic. Any and all feedback on the podcast is encouraged. You can email the hosts individually at Matt, Tiny, or Mike at obsessiveviewer.com, or send an email to the podcast in general at podcast@obsessiveviewer.com. Check out the Obsessive Viewer blog at obsessiveviewer.com, where we post movie and TV reviews and the occasional editorial about the business of entertainment. You can also like us on Facebook at facebook.com/theobsessiveviewer and follow us on Twitter at obsessiveviewer, at obsessivetiny, and at IamMikeWhite. If you want more obsessive content in your life, check out our sister site, obsessivebooknerd.com, for book reviews, author spotlights, and a general celebration of reading. Finally, if you're philosophically curious, check out Tiny's side project podcast, The Secular Perspective, which explores the concepts of faith, religion, and existence from the perspective of secular hosts. You can find that at thesecularperspective.com and subscribe to the podcast on the podcatcher of your choice. Again, thank you so much for listening. We love you. Be excellent to each other.